Hi guys, this is Brian with another Optimize video. Today we're going to talk about how to optimize your life with some principles from positive psychology, modern science that I'm really excited about. As always, we've got a collection of philosopher's notes distilled into this Positive Psychology 101 class. As I mentioned in the last video of this series that I did on Stoicism, out of all the categories that we help you optimize, from ancient wisdom, this modern science, mental toughness, habits, sleep, stoicism, purpose, leadership, etc. This is my favorite. Ancient wisdom, modern science. This is really what I've dedicated my better part of the last 12 years to, 13, 14, even 15 years, arguably. Understanding what the greatest teachers in ancient wisdom and modern science have to say about how we can live our best, most heroic lives in the 21st century. So I'm really excited to share with you an overview of over 60 philosopher's notes on the best books in modern science. To give some context for people for whom this might be your first exposure to Optimize. Optimize is all about more wisdom and less time. If you know this and you're already part of Optimize, here you go. Quick overview one more time. Hopefully you'll be inspired to share this with your friends if you feel so inspired, and this will be an introduction for them. So Optimize is all about more wisdom and less time. We have a collection of philosopher's notes that I'll tell you more about, 6-page PDF, 20-minute MP3 distillations of over 600 books on ancient wisdom, modern science, and again, all these different dozens of categories. Then we have 50 101 classes, which are 60-minute classes in which I distill the top 10 big ideas across all these different categories. And then we've got over 1,000 Optimize Plus Ones, which are micro lessons, 2, 3, 5 minutes long, videos, kind of blog posts, etc. 1,000 of them. Now again, other important point is Optimize, we used to charge $100 a year, $250 lifetime. It's now free. As part of my new company, Heroic, new tattoo, by the way, Heroic. We've got my logo. I'll unveil that more deeply there. We've got Arte on this arm. We've got Heroic on this arm now. I'm so excited about it. New business, Heroic acquired Optimize. And the first thing we did was decide to make Optimize free to help catalyze our movement, fulfill our mission of changing the world one person at a time, starting with you and me today. So yeah, it's free, no strings attached, no credit card required. No ads, no spam, just more wisdom in less time. So let's go through this section, modern science, positive psychology, etc. Now, Abraham Maslow, I'll start with the notes, then we'll go to the 101. Abraham Maslow is one of my heroes. He's on my wall back there. What's up, Abe? That's how I refer to him, Abe. Above him, you got Gandhi, then you got Joseph Campbell, then you got Ralph Waldo Emerson, Eleanor Roosevelt, Steve Jobs, Marcus Aurelius, Abraham Lincoln. We'll talk about them another time. Abraham Maslow is basically the grand godfather of the modern positive psychology movement, humanistic psychologist in the middle of the 20th century, 50s or so. He was studying what makes great people great and then distilled that into his theories around self-actualization. We've got a note on motivation and personality. We have a couple other notes on him as well, future visions, and then toward a psychology of being as well. Love him. To understand, modern science, I think you need to go back to Maslow. Obviously, there's a lot of other people involved. Viktor Frankl, another 20th century humanistic psychologist, practicing Stoic, as we talked about in the last session, who survived the Holocaust, came out with his logotherapy, unbelievably inspiring man. We have notes on his man's search for meaning. And then Martin Seligman is known as the kind of godfather of the positive psychology movement, University of Pennsylvania. He, with Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, Chris Peterson, and their colleagues, created the positive psychology movement in the year 2000. This is his most recent book, Flourish. We also have notes on authentic happiness and learned optimism. One of the most influential psychologists in history, full stop. A lot of my work is based on his work and a lot of other of these teachers, of course. Now, here's a book you've probably never heard of, Rethinking Positive Thinking, Gabriel Oettingen. Check out this note. If you join Optimize or you are on Optimize, Rethinking Positive Thinking. This is brilliant. It's on the science of making your dreams a reality. Short story here, Gabrielle teaches us, professor at NYU, new friend, just amazing human being. She teaches us that it's not enough to dream. Yes, you need to start with your wish and what you will get when that outcome is fulfilled, but then you need to rub that wish up against reality. You need to look at the obstacles, and then you need to create a plan to meet that. She boils it down into something called WOOP, W-O-O-P, Wish, Outcome, Obstacle, Plan. It's a huge part of our Mastery Series coach program for one simple reason. Science says it works. When you start with, very important, start with a vision of the future, and then rub it up against reality, you create what scientists call a necessity to act. People who want to lose weight, people who want to get a good job, when they just imagine getting these things, they do not get it as often as people who imagine it, then imagine the challenges they will face. Really important thing called mental contrasting. Again, we talk about it in the note and in the 101 as well. I believe we have that one in there. Grit. I mean, you can't get into positive psychology without going back to the University of Pennsylvania. Angela Duckworth, Grit, the power of passion and perseverance. I have so much respect for Angela and her work and her commitment to raising the next generation of gritty heroes. Check out this note. Kelly McGonigal is one of my favorite authors. She is based out of Stanford, kind of does some different things up there. She's written a number of books that we've profiled, including The Joy of Movement. I've got it down here, The Upside of Stress, if you scroll all the way down. And then we've got another one called The Willpower Instinct. This one's on the science of exercise. This is the best book on the science of movement and exercise. Really inspiring. She's a fantastic storyteller who integrates cutting-edge science in a really practical, inspiring way. Check it out. How exercise helps us find happiness, hope, connection, and courage. Why don't I jump into this one just for the sake of it? So, a philosopher's note, if you don't know what those are, basically I take a 272-page book and I distill it into a 6-page PDF featuring my favorite big ideas. So this highlighted section is from the book. I riff on it. Hope molecules. It's actually what they call the runner's high. There's actually a name for it. What happens there? It's hope molecules. Unbelievably cool. And you want to make yourself anxious, tired, and hostile? Don't get enough steps. Check this out. Did you know scientists have studied? Amazing. So I'll just let Kelly tell us. When adults are randomly assigned to reduce their daily step count, 88% become more depressed. Think about that. Nope, can't. You're in a study. You can't walk as much as you usually do. 88% of them become more depressed. Within 1 week of becoming more sedentary, they report a 31% decline in life satisfaction. 31%, 1 week. The average daily step count required to induce feelings of anxiety and depression and decrease satisfaction with life is 5,649. Which begs the question, how many steps have you gotten over the last 24 hours, 48 hours? I'll look at mine. I'm 7,000 steps in. It's 9:52 a.m. as I record this. Let's check it out. Got my Suunto watch here, keeping track of the old steps. 13,595 is the current average over the last 7 days, closer to 14,300. Yesterday was 16,648, etc. So what's your step count? Know this, the typical American takes 4,774 steps per day. Across the globe, that average is 4,961. AKA below the threshold that scientists have told us we're going to induce or have a higher likelihood of inducing depression, anxiety, hostility. So we can solve some of the world's ills by making sure we all get enough steps? Yes, that would be a marginal but significant contribution to our well-being. Carrying on, we've got that step count. We've got really cool science on what happens when you get together and you work out together. I share a video of our team of optimized coaches doing a Spartan race together. We were the second largest ever. We will be the largest next time we go out. But there's a power of moving together that science has studied. Obstacles make us stronger is a big theme of our work. That's what a PDF looks like. The same content is available in the Philosopher's Notes on the web and in our app. Again, big ideas, I connect them to other big ideas, and I kick you in the butt playfully, yet sternly, encouraging you to go out and live these ideas today. Carrying on, we've got the world's leading psychologist on post-traumatic growth. You've heard of post-traumatic stress, but not everybody responds to stress with post-traumatic stress. Some people use that to catalyze growth. What about those people can we learn that we can apply to our lives? That's what this book is about. What doesn't kill us has the potential, at the very least, to make us stronger. Then there's Anders Ericsson. God bless his soul. He passed away recently unexpectedly. He had become a new friend, was going to join us at one of our events that got postponed with COVID. But he is the guy behind the 10,000 hour kind of rule. I put that in quotes because we talk about it in the note. It's not really a rule. It's actually the starting line that he used to be able to predict who would become the true peak performers. But it doesn't end at 10,000. Just get started at that point. So he shares his secrets from the new science of expertise. Amy Cuddy, presence, boom. How you hold your body, pull a thread through your head, create that strong, grounded posture, as she has up here, boom. Versus, hunching over, you actually change your underlying physiology, which is powerful. Create your presence so you can bring your boldest self to your biggest challenges. Happier, Tal Ben-Shahar. One of my favorite teachers of all time, another new dear friend, also an optimizer, unbelievably cool human being who taught at the time the largest class in Harvard's history. This book is the distillation of that wisdom. Happier, learn the secrets to daily joy and lasting fulfillment. He now, by the way, has a master's program and a PhD you can check out. The University of Pennsylvania has its own master's program, which is, I think Tal's still working on his PhD, but it's going to be awesome. Check out Tal. We got links to his website, etc. We've got a couple more notes from Tal. And then gratitude, Robert A. Emmons. He is the leading scientist on gratitude. Gratitude, the science behind this, is extraordinary. You can't be simultaneously grateful and depressed. Try it. And again, depression is a complex thing that we talk a lot about. We've got a class, Conquering Depression 101. I used to suffer up and down. My family's got a history of not just depression, but anxiety and alcoholism and all this other stuff. So we talk about that a lot throughout our work together. But gratitude is a really powerful lever to pull. Start focusing on the things that are working in your life rather than all the things that aren't working. Back to Abraham Maslow, his unpublished papers, astonishing. I can't believe it took me this long to get to one of my top 3 books of all time by 2 new dear friends, James and Susie Pawelski. James runs the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania. His wife, Susie, is a writer and blogger and teacher, also a graduate of the program. They are awesome, and they are 2 of the world's leading scientists on the science of virtuous relationships. So, you want to create a great relationship? They teach us how to be happy together using positive psychology to build love that lasts. This book made my top 3 of all time because it's my favorite relationship book, but it's also my favorite book integrating ancient wisdom and modern science. James was literally there at day 1 in 2000 when Martin Seligman and their colleagues created the positive psychology movement, and he talks about how they founded it on virtue. So why I got my tattoo, arete, that's the one-word summation of Aristotle's advice on how to flourish and live an extraordinary life, which basically translates as excellence or virtue, but be the best version of yourself, moment to moment to moment. And when you're closing the gap between who you're capable of being and who you're actually being, there's no room for regret, anxiety, disillusionment, etc. Anyway, they talk about hitting the gym in the context of a relationship, and also give us a great overview on the ancient wisdom and modern science, and how science leans into the Aristotelian wisdom and the idea of virtue, etc. Soni Lyubomirsky, I'm not sure how I got this deep and not mentioning her yet. This was, when I read it, my favorite book of all time. It remains top, extraordinary book, distilling positive psychology into a series of recommendations that we know work. The How of Happiness. Sonia also conducted research for us with one of her top PhD students at UC Riverside for our Mastery Series and Coach program. We were honored to have her support, and we were thrilled to see that the program works. In their words, the results were, I don't know if they used the word astonishing, but the team literally said that if they didn't do the research themselves, they wouldn't have believed it. 300-day program transforms lives. You can learn more about that at the Mastery Coach link up here. Back to Kelly McGonigal, the upside of stress. Stress has an upside? Yes, it does. Depending on how you perceive your stress. If you see stress as threatening your well-being, your physiology will change and be different than if you see the same stress as a challenge. Not as a threat, but as a challenge. Yep, I'm going to rub my hands together and I'm going to see if I can show up as my best self in the face of this stress. That's the upside of stress. How you perceive your stress, fascinatingly, dictates how the stress will affect your body. And therefore, of course, your psychology, physiology, etc. Jonathan Haidt, the happiness hypothesis, another luminary who ran the Positive Psychology Journal. I forget where he is now. He was at the UVA. I think he's now at NYU. Brilliant thinker. This is a great book. I really enjoyed the book and also proud of the distillation here. Finding Modern Truth and Ancient Wisdom, same theme. Check it out. Flo, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, founded the Positive Psychology movement with Martin Seligman and Chris Peterson and others. This is a book about the psychology of optimal experience. So he is the one who coined the word flow to capture that state we get into when we're in flow. I'm feeling pretty good right now. Perhaps I am in flow right now. Boom. There's this clarity, this focus. Time just kind of dissolves and you're right there right now. We want to get into that state and learn how to get into that state more consistently, which is what this book is about. We talk about this a lot in productivity, by the way. So check that category out as well. Back to Sonia. She wrote The How of Happiness and the Myths of Happiness. Things you think would make you happy that don't. Hint on that. Chasing things that are outside of you, like fame and wealth and hotness. Those are hedonic pleasures. You get on what scientists call a hedonic treadmill. You run harder and harder and harder and harder, and guess what? You don't get anywhere. But good news, there's no such thing as a eudaimonic treadmill. When you actually move from extrinsic motivators to intrinsic motivators, and you quit chasing the fame and the wealth and the hotness, which unfortunately our society has seduced us to think is where it's at, and you focus instead on becoming a better person, deepening your relationships, and finding ways to contribute to your family and your community in the world, hedonic, eudaimonic, boom. Then you spiral up and you grow and you feel a deep sense of, again, what Aristotle and Seligman and all these wonderful scientists would tell us is the true purpose of life. You're flourishing by putting your virtues in action, etc. There's a science to hope, and this is a big deal. The opposite of hope, of course, is hopelessness. Hopelessness is a one-way ticket to depression. So understanding how to cultivate hope is really, really important. We talk about this a lot. Check out these notes for more. Constructive living is, I used to say, and I still do, one of the best little books you've never heard of. Tiny little book. Dan Millman recommended it to me years ago. Read it. Love it. A therapist integrating therapy with Zen Buddhism. Really cool stuff. Basic idea here is you're not going to control the emotions in your life. They're kind of like clouds passing, but you can control the behaviors you choose to engage in, which will lead to more positive emotions. But if you never do anything because you don't feel like it, well, you won't do much. So then let your actions drive your feelings rather than the other way around. That's actually exactly the theme of this book by Richard Wiseman, who leans into William James's wisdom in his book, The As-If Principle, the radically new approach to changing your life. Basic idea there is act like the best version of yourself. And then the feelings will follow. Most people, again, look at, how do I feel today? Do I feel like doing this? And then they do or do not. But if you look at it and say, look, how do I want to feel? And who do I need to be to feel that? Boom. Your actions will drive your feelings. And that's much more powerful and reliable than the other way around. Back to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote another book on creativity. This is super good. We have a whole category on creativity. Check that out. Another one of my favorite subjects. The psychology of discovery and invention. Back to some more wisdom from Robert Emmons on gratitude. Back to Martin Seligman, authentic happiness. and learned optimism. And then Robert Biswas Diener helped us understand the science of courage. Really cool stuff. Two facets. You need to be willing to act in the presence of fear. So there's a willingness to act, and there's also an ability to control fear. But you will never get rid of it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the wise embrace of it, and then the courageous decision to act in the presence of it. We talk about this a lot. Donald Robertson, we talked about him in the Stoic video. He shows us how Stoic philosophy has influenced modern cognitive psychotherapy. Great book, great notes. William Damon, again, the moral scholar on the psychology of purpose and moral development. Great book. We've got a couple others we featured in Purpose. Walter Mischel, another great researcher on the science of willpower. Check this out. He measured kids in a lab and told them, hey, look, here's a marshmallow or a pretzel or whatever he offered them. If you can wait a certain number of minutes, I'll give you 2 marshmallows or pretzels. And then he measured, can the kids wait or not? And whether or not they could wait for the second marshmallow predicted in crazy ways, we talk about in the note, their SAT score years later and their performance in other domains years later. Willpower is really important. Why self-control? Subtitle, why self-control is the engine of success. We want to understand this for ourselves and for our kids. Then we've got some books on the power of virtue, the power of character strengths. Robert McGrath, Ryan Niemiec, great thinkers in the domain. The Character Strengths Matter, book by Shannon Pauly, Catherine Britton, brilliant stuff. Back to Tal Ben-Shahar. The Pursuit of Perfect. We're going to do a video on conquering perfectionism. Tal's going to make a visit there. Again, this is getting long, so I'm going to keep it somewhat briefer, but you want to hold high standards, Tal tells us, but embrace reality. You will never actually hit those standards perfectly. Those standards are more like a guiding star than a distant shore. And you want to get that, because if you don't and you hold high standards and then you mercilessly shame yourself for not hitting them, you will experience anxiety, depression, and all the other things you don't want to experience. So really powerful ideas there. We want to get clarity on and master. The Power of Agency, great book. Agency is what scientists call a sense of basically empowerment, that you can achieve what you want in life. Cultivating this is super important. Dr. Paul Napper and Dr. Anthony Rao, 2 great guys who share their wisdom in this context. I think you'll enjoy it. Ellen Langer, Harvard, she's created something called the psychology of possibility. She's done some fascinating research that we profile in Counterclockwise. Changing people and how they see themselves in their world has radical effects on their psychology and their physiology. Really interesting stuff. Again, Ed Diener, Robert Biswas Diener. Ed recently passed away. God bless his soul. Another one of the co-founding kind of fathers of the positive psychology movement. This book, Happiness, is the distillation of his take on the science of well-being. His son, by the way, is known as the Indiana Jones of positive psychology because he's traveled around the world, different cultures, really cool guy, really cool story. Daniel Goleman, of course, emotional intelligence. Again, we're deep in this list now. We've got over 60 notes, and I'm just now getting to this book. This could be in the number 1 slot. Dan Goleman, EQ. Here's a quick take on what it means, why we do what we do. Ed Dici, another one of the luminaries of the positive psychology movement, talks about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Carol Dweck, mindset and self-theories. She's done fascinating research out of, I think she was at Columbia, now she's at Stanford, how your mindset affects what you achieve in your life. Again, this is big, and this has influenced me deeply in my parenting philosophy and also in my own personal approach. She's the one who came up with the growth mindset. You read a self-development book, they're referencing either implicitly or explicitly Carol Dweck and mindset. We got to understand her theories. Growth versus fixed mindset, etc. Barry Schwartz, Paradox of Choice. This is another extraordinary one. Too much choice, not a good thing. You actually want to reduce your choices if you want to have more happiness. Albert Ellis, one of the early pioneers of the cognitive behavioral therapy movement. Powerful book. Another one of the Maslow books. A great book on depression, The Neuroscience to Reverse the Course of Depression, One Small Change at a Time, called The Upward Spiral by Alex Korb. Check that one out. Arnold Lazarus has got a great book. We've got a book on how to operationalize grit. Another great book by a founder of the positive psychology movement, Pursuing the Good Life. We got Positive Psychology in the Body. If I have one criticism of the positive psychology movement, which I don't, because it's where it needs to be right now, and they've done such extraordinary work. But what I'm excited about extending the field into in the future is more work on how our choices physiologically drive our psychology. So Positive Psychology in the Body talks about how our nutrition, our movement, our sleep affects our psychology. Really important stuff that we talk about in this note and throughout our work together. The Happiness Trap is another great book on another therapeutic model called Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. Geez, we got a lot of books here. How about a Nobel Prize winner talking about how your telomeres are affected by your psychology? Here's a revolutionary approach to living younger, healthier, longer. Your telomeres, of course, are like the end caps on your DNA, etc. It's like your shoelace caps. Right? They keep your shoelaces from fraying. If those come off or they get loosened or they get shortened, then your kind of shoelaces can fray. Well, same thing with your overall well-being at the most genetic level, which is going to be a predictor and correlate to your aging, etc. Gosh, we got more books. That's more than enough from me. Succeed, the Science of Reaching Our Goals. Broadcasting Happiness, Michelle Gielan. Great book on how your well-being changes things from an interpersonal perspective. The Science of Habit Creation, The Science of Play by Stuart Brown. Another one by Tal Ben-Shahar. The Importance and the Science of Attention and Focus in Wrapped. Those are the Philosopher's Notes. My God, that was long. And I could have literally talked about each one of those books for 20, 30 minutes. Check it out. Over 60 of the best books on the science of happiness in those Philosopher's Notes. Then we have a ton of Optimize Plus Ones, which are the short form takes on the best big ideas from those books. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of those, which again are short form videos and kind of blog post sort of things. And then we've got the 101 class in which I distill 10 of my favorite big ideas, which frankly is impossible to do, in positive psychology. We talk about Abraham Maslow, Viktor Frankl, Csikszentmihalyi, Seligman, Carol Dweck, Roy Baumeister. We didn't even include his book. Somehow they weren't even on the list. I got to get the team to put that on. He's the leading researcher on willpower. Tal Ben-Shahar, we talked about Gabriel Oettingen, Michelle Seeger, etc. Each of the classes has its own workbook, which helps us move from theory to practice to mastery. I'm in the country. Internet's slow. It'll be faster for you. At least it should be. 10 ideas. Each one has its own little worksheet that you can use to kind of decide how you can apply the wisdom that resonates. That is how to optimize your life with more wisdom and less time via positive psychology. Like I said, I'm really excited to share this. This has deeply impacted my life and something that I hope has a profound impact on yours to the extent you're inspired to go deep. Should keep you busy for a while. Each one of those is like 20, 25 minutes, 60 of them. That's 30 hours of content just there. Let's go. Time to optimize our lives, more wisdom and less time. Again, that's one of dozens of categories we've got. We've got videos like this I'm creating them on each of these categories. Would be honored to have you join us if you're feeling it. Tell your friends, let's optimize our lives so we can become the best, most eudaimonic, heroic versions of ourselves in service to creating a better world for our communities, our families, our future generations, etc. Let's go. Day one. Make today awesome. See you.